Hello, welcome to the Wine Country Pastor Podcast. My name is Bill Walden. I am your host, and here once again with Nicole Ornay. We're doing a follow-up. She said hello.
I did.
A nice little hello. We're doing a follow-up to what Nicole shared on the previous podcast. The previous one was entitled Why I Left the Church But Came Back, or I Left the Church But Came Back. That was the gist of it. So we're going to be building from that. I asked Nicole to kind of do a follow-up because she did come back to the church and never really left Christ, but didn't want to be part of what a lot of people will call the organized church. And so, that's a common sentiment among a lot of people today. And so I thought, but when somebody comes back, how does the church make a clear path for them, make it as easy as possible, as welcoming as possible, probably a better way to say it, as welcoming as possible. And then how do they deal with things, and how do they deal with former hurts that were inflicted upon them by church members or often by church leadership? So this is hopefully an episode that will cover both sides of the coin, how the church can welcome people back better, and how those who are doing a re-entry to the church can have a good attitude. And so that's kind of the goal. We decided not to have a title for this podcast going in. We're going to let the conversation determine what the title will be later. So anyway, welcome, Nicole.
Thanks.
So,
Happy to be here.
yeah, thanks I think we both agreed that a follow-up was important.
Yeah.
So where do we start? You came back to the church.
I came back to the church. Maybe we start with how that transition was for me.
Yeah, please.
And what happened during those times. And going back to the church was obviously difficult. It was a gradual process. Just like leaving was gradual, going back was gradual. But having a church, number one, that wasn't like my previous church, that I didn't know anybody from my previous church at my new church, was important for me personally, because then I knew none of those people would be there to hurt me again. So that was important. But also within the new church community, having a friendly, welcoming environment. The pastor at that church was incredibly energetic and very happy.
I think it's okay if we just say who that was.
Okay, yeah, Pastor Bruce Zachary.
Yeah, in Calvary Chapel in Camarillo. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an amazing person and always energetic and always happy and always like going to and fro. But that energy carried throughout the church and really set the tone for the church to where it wasn't an old stagnant community. It had life and there was vision and there was always something going on, which was important for me because not only did I know there was potential to do things and to be involved, there were also places because everybody had something to do. I wasn't like the sole focus of the church. It wasn't like I was the only new person there. Everybody was doing things and everybody had a job, but there was also space for me to gradually work my way into community.
Yeah, you didn't become everybody's project.
No. That was very important.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the greeters who were there, they were friendly, but they weren't pushy. And that was very important. I didn't want somebody to make me their project. I didn't need fixing from anybody else. I needed fixing for myself. And I knew that I was the one who had to do the work. And I didn't want anybody else to help me. That is a personal flaw of mine. I don't accept help well. So that could be different for somebody else, but I didn't want pushiness. I didn't want to be pushed into, we have this we can plug you into, we have this we can do for you. That wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to go into the pool very slowly. Toes first, then your feet, then your ankles. And that was important for me. And the church gave me space to do that.
That's great. I've had a kind of a little pet peeve with greeters sometimes. When I go visit another church, I don't. Sometimes people are over the top, like, "Bro, how are you? Oh, right." It's like, dude, we're brothers in Christ. Past that, I don't know you.
Yeah.
It's just let me find a seat, And then I know sometimes greeters, I've heard this complaint even from our church in previous years. Somebody returns to the church and they say, "Hey man, where you been?" You know, and it's like guilt trip, immediate guilt trip.
Yeah.
And then the person that's coming back to the church, they think, "I don't think you really cared because you didn't call me." You know, so
Yeah.
just a word to greeters out there.
Hmm.
Be friendly, welcoming, but not over the top.
And also to members, if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's been gone,
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks is different
Mm-hmm.
than months or years.
Mm-hmm.
And having the wisdom to say, "Oh, it's so great to see you. I
Mm-hmm.
really missed you," is a great way to let somebody know that you knew that they were gone, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not pushing them or you're not guilt tripping them.
Mm-hmm.
And being gentle and allowing them to have the space,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
to work through that.
Mm-hmm. Good. You also mentioned something else before we started recording about greeters, and now it escapes my mind, and I'm confessing that live on video.
That's okay.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about just because they're the initial contact. I mean,
Yeah.
they're the first impression that you get
Hmm.
of entering this new church environment. So
Yeah.
there is a responsibility there.
There is. I think if you are a greeter, you have to consciously step out of your own life. You know, if you're having a hard morning or you're having a hard time, maybe stepping away from being a greeter for a time might be
Mm-hmm.
what you have to do, but not projecting that or not letting others see that is
Mm-hmm.
really important.
Mm-hmm.
You're there to welcome people. And so having that welcoming mindset is important because
Mm-hmm.
people can read through your words
Mm-hmm.
and they see you. And it doesn't mean you can't be carrying things. We
Mm-hmm.
all carry things,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely having the right mindset
Mm-hmm.
of I just want to be here to make people feel loved and accepted and welcome.
Right.
And not, if you know them and you see them every week, asking questions, how is your daughter and
Mm-hmm.
how's this? And it's fine. But if it's new, small
Mm-hmm.
talk is great.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned that you didn't feel people were prying into your life, trying
Hmm.
to go too deep, too fast.
Yeah.
And you mentioned also that you're an introvert,
Hmm.
as am I. And yes, I once attended a conference where people, the leader of the conference said, "Okay, now we're going to pair up with just somebody around you, and we're just going to get honest." And I'm just thinking, "Where's the door?" I'm running for the door,
Yeah.
and I just hate kind of being. I feel manipulated that way,
Hmm.
So I think as an introvert, you do too.
Yeah.
But tell me about that. That nobody tried to get into your life inappropriately or too quickly, or.
Yeah. Everybody was able to make me feel seen, let me know that I was welcome, but nobody pushed. I was not ready to give details. I'm not great with small talk, but I also am very guarded
Mm-hmm.
with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't open up to people unless I trust you. And that trust was being built. And they, for whatever reason, were very good at having surface level conversations. And if they were, what else, what about your family and stuff like that? If I were giving a very brief answer, they were good at reading that and
Mm-hmm.
seeing that I didn't want to go any further, and they honored that.
Mm-hmm.
And they offered, I think part of that was they offered groups, they offered smaller groups where you could connect with people. So when you're ready to connect, here are these groups of people that you can go deeper with. They offered other things, but on Sunday, it was surface level
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't very deep. And that was exactly what I needed
Mm-hmm.
personally.
Tell me about the group you got involved in. I thought you found a group of people where you were all on the same level in life. So tell us about that.
They had a life group for blended families, people who had come together in marriage and either both had children or one had children, and they were navigating life through that. That is an incredibly difficult thing to do, to manage children who have broken families. And how do you do that in a godly way?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that to honor both sets of biological parents, but also honor those people who stepped into that role?
Mm-hmm.
And the support, and a lot of times the behavioral things. So we all were in difficult season of life, trying to do our best for these kids that were struggling.
And when you and Rick got married, he had a daughter already.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
you were an instant mom.
I was. She was 10 and I was 19. So I stepped into a really big job that I didn't quite understand.
You might as well go in with both feet, right?
Yeah. I don't do small things when I choose to do them. I do them big. Yeah, so it was beneficial coming back to the church to have people who were like me, because not only was I coming back and was I coming out of a non-traditional Christian circumstance, a lot of times people could be very judgy. Why wouldn't you just wait around and find some good Christian boy, and all of those things that come along with you knew what you were supposed to do, and nobody in that group felt that way. All of those people understood how life works and how God brings people together in many different ways and for many different reasons in all different kinds of seasons. And we all were able to, we didn't have to look past that. We didn't have to get past that because we were already there. And that allowed us to build relationships and friendships faster, because I didn't have to explain, no, this is not my sister, it's my daughter, and yes, I got married, like all of those details that I had to preface everything with at her school. And there was lots of muddiness in that. And I just skipped that puddle and I went straight to the heart of things with those people.
It's really, there's a lesson there for the people that would have been outside of that group. So you entered a group where you don't have to start on step 1. You can catch up together on step 5.
Yeah.
You've already been through 1 to 4 together, so you can dive right in.
Yep.
But I think oftentimes, good intentions, Christians can throw platitudes and quote scriptures and just think, oh, I've got the answer for you, and they haven't thought through what your situation is or was. And that can be, I imagine you were exhausted. When you finally left your previous church, you were exhausted. It would have been exhausting to have to explain all those things to somebody that just wants to give you a quick cliche.
Yeah.
And it's just not helpful.
No.
It's off-putting, I think.
You can gauge, when the person is just looking to offload whatever wisdom they may have, and when somebody's actually interested in you, and when somebody actually wants to get to know you for who you are and understand where you've come from,
right,
and what your struggles might have been. And so I became very good at just knowing what my talking points were, hitting those things, letting them say what they wanted, and moving on. It was easy because there were so many points in my life that I had to just listen to, being such a young mother to such the age of child that I had. I heard everything. I went on field trips and people were like, oh, are you that? When I went into the school, the people who were in her administration or some of her teachers in high school were the same ones that I had, because 9 years prior I was there.
That's weird.
Yes, it's weird. It gave me an edge that I don't think she realized that I had.
Yeah.
Because I knew all those people.
You can say, watch out for this teacher.
Well, and also if I had a great relationship in her, it served me well when she was in middle school. The administration had been the administrator at my school in elementary school, and we had a very small school. And so when stuff happened with her biological mother's family that wasn't supposed to be happening, they were trying to take her out of school, they called me.
Oh, wow.
Because I had that relationship.
Oh, they trusted you.
They trusted me, and
Wow.
they knew my character, so I was able to use that to my advantage.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, but in those situations, when they first saw me, all those questions. Oh, yeah, well, good for you.
Well, I mean this as a compliment. You have a youthful look anyway about you, so that kind of would lend to the confusion, perhaps.
Yes.
So
yeah, it is.
No fault of anybody, just
No. Yeah, it was. in those situations, the point of that was in those situations there were lots of platitudes that I had to learn to jump over.
Right.
In those situations. So when I went to church and there were platitudes, it was easy for me to jump over those. And those, I knew that those were the people who didn't actually want to invest in getting to know me. Those were the people who they were giving that comment because they didn't know what to say and they didn't want to further that conversation. So it was easy for me to kind of whoop and just go in a different
What do you
direction.
think Christians, it reminds me of the doctor that says, take 2 aspirin, call me in the morning, you know, that kind of thing. Some people, they just want to give you a quick fix. Instead of giving you a platitude, what would have been nice to hear from some of those people that had no idea really what you had gone through or what you had entered into in regards to marriage and having a immediate 10-year-old daughter? What's some of the things that they could have said instead of platitudes?
I think acknowledging, wow, that's a really unique situation. That must have been really difficult for you. Thank you for sharing. Something simple that's not trying to give me anything, and that's not trying to fill a void, but letting me know that I've been heard and that I understand. And I completely understand. Hardly anybody understood my circumstances. They're very unique and not common, even within blended families. So just having somebody acknowledge what my experience was and who I am, I think is perfect.
Yeah, that's enough to start with. Yeah.
It lets me know
It's
that
not
they're
off-putting, but it leaves room to go further.
Yes. They're open to developing a relationship.
Yeah. So far, Calvary Chapel, Camarillo, Pastor Bruce Zachary, I don't know if you know that I baptized him,
No.
and I also did his wedding.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
I've known him a long
goodness.
time. He was in my college and career group back in
I knew that.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
And anyway,
That's fun.
yeah, it is, small world. So a welcoming, positive attitude pastor, and that was reflected in the greeters and in the people that welcomed you, and then a church that offered small groups that were specific to people in certain places of life. That all made it easier.
Yeah.
So those are all things for every church to consider.
Yeah.
Okay. What else made it easier for you to go back to church there in particular? Good coffee?
No, I wasn't a coffee drinker.
Oh,
I
thanks for
think,
watching. This show's over.
I think it was just, it was God working in my heart, and I knew that's where He wanted me. And all of those things that were in place for everyone. But God knew they were there for me. And He put me there. I'm sure there were other paths that I could have taken at different times. That was the point that I submitted. That was the point that I said, okay, God, I'm ready. And so He just made the path very, very clear, very little debris, very easy for me to just go.
No speed bumps that you have to watch out for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And He was gracious in that way. There were little things that could have potential, life struggles or whatever. Life gets in the way, and church is hard to cut out time for. And He was patient, and He was gracious, and He just made it very easy for me to go into that.
That's great.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is allowing God to do the work. It's on our shoulders, but it's not 100% on the church's shoulders. God has to do that work Himself. But being available and knowing what this specific group of people who maybe have been hurt by the church need coming into it, you can model that and make an environment that's welcoming for people who are struggling and are hurt.
Sometimes, churches, they say, come as you are, but then the other side, they follow that up very quickly. Come as you are, but be like us,
Yes.
And I think about churches that have dress codes or dress expectations. They might be even unspoken.
Yeah.
But, a gal doesn't dare come to church with pants, and you better have long hair, and guys, you better have a suit on, and it just becomes exclusionary,
Yeah.
you know, and so,
And not relevant to younger people. I think that's very much an expectation for other generations. My generation, we can see the benefit, we can see the, the intent behind it. But I think a lot of people are just like, if I can roll out of bed and get to church, a lot of times, I don't want to have to think about having to buy a special outfit just to go to church.
I mean, even people with no finances, you know, they are excluded. And I've often thought that, you know, and I tell people this in leadership positions in our church, that some people that attend, it took everything they had to get there. Let's not make it harder for them, you know.
Yeah.
And so, some things for the church to be mindful of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So those are all the things that the church did. Anything else that the church did that made it easier for you that you can think back on? And
Not particularly.
okay.
Yeah.
So then there's the other side of the coin. It was your attitude going back in, and we had talked about that a little bit. So,
Yeah.
you know, a church can make it as a smooth entryway as possible, but if you're carrying the old baggage, it doesn't matter what they do.
Yeah.
So tell me about what was going on inside of you when you went back to church.
When we talked last time, it was really my son and wanting to raise him in the church environment that led me through the door. But once I was there, and once God really, spoke to my heart and broke my hard shell, it was a lot of me having to come to terms with the past and really starting to rebuild the faith that I had. Because it was there, but it was very broken. It was in shambles. I hadn't been using that muscle, so it had atrophied. And I had to
The
work
faith
on it.
muscle.
Yeah, the faith muscle had atrophied. And I had to start doing the things to rebuild that, to get closer to the Lord. And just coming to church every Sunday was part of that. That's just, every week being faithful in that. When we are faithful, God is faithful to honor that. And he worked through it, and I didn't just sit there. I listened to the message, and then I retained it, and I reflected on it during the week.
So you pushed past your emotions. I imagine there was, when you're developing a new discipline, it's easier to go back to the old way.
Yeah.
So you were probably tempted to stay home a lot.
Family dynamics, yeah.
Yeah.
With my daughter at the time and where she was in her life, it was definitely easier to just be home and manage that. So making that sacrifice, but also I had the habit built into me as a child. I knew we just go to church on Sundays. So it was easier for me to get back. When you know an exercise or you know a sport, you may leave it for a while, but the expression riding a bike, it's like riding a bike. You just jump back on and your body knows what to do. So I caught on to that very quickly. Going to church wasn't difficult for me personally. It was the growing my faith area. Those were the things that were harder for me to do. When I would hear scripture or I would hear a message that hit on something in my heart that God was saying, let's think about this. I had to think about it. I couldn't just say, nope, I don't want to deal with that right now. I had to do the hard work of, do I really believe this? Where does the Bible say that this is true? Is this, not saying anything against Pastor Bruce, he did a fabulous job, but for me, is this the truth? Is this good doctrine? Is this what...
Oh, you would have said that with anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you should.
Yeah. And having to rebuild those muscles, also having to rebuild the skill of worshiping, that took much longer for me to build because of how worship was taken out of my life. It was a very that piece probably was the most hurtful.
It was a tender spot still.
I didn't really work through that until we moved here.
Really?
Yeah, and it was incredibly, that's a different story. That was very difficult, but...
Part 3, huh?
Yeah, maybe. It's still developing. So just doing the things of going home, reflecting on the message, and growing my faith, reading the Bible. What do I believe? How do I implement that? Do I think that the way that my parents or my grandparents implemented their faith, is that relevant to today? Is that what I should be believing? Is that how I should be treating others? And really filtering all of that through. Because again, the day and age that I'm living in is vastly different than my parents or my grandparents. And those traditions are passed down and they're important. But we also have to make them relevant for who we are
So
as a society.
so somebody could have, that had gone through what you went through, they could have gone back to church and just sat there and crossed their arms and kind of expect the church to do all the work for you. So what you're saying is they did their part, but you had to do yours.
Yeah.
In regards to, like, if I say I believe these things, am I gonna live by them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a years long process. It wasn't, God didn't dump it all on me. It was one step at a time. He got me connected with people. He got me back into a church. He taught me how to connect and build relationships again. And then he started saying, hey, what about this message?
Now let's get to the hard stuff.
Yeah. And that was years of, even still to this day, trying to figure out, how do I engage with the world around me and the people around me in a loving way while still holding my values? Can I still believe what I believe, but also be understanding and hear other people's lived experiences? And the fact that I can honor their experience and I can hear their story and I can sympathize with them doesn't necessarily mean that I don't believe what I believe. But sometimes just raising those questions or looking at things and working through, like, the ownership of your own faith can look to a church like you are flailing or you're faltering or, you know, you're struggling or this is not what the Bible says. Well, I know that's not what the Bible says. But if, you know, this person on the side of the road doesn't believe the Bible, they don't live their life according to the Bible, it's unrealistic of me to expect them to live to the biblical standards. They don't, maybe they're atheists, maybe they're agnostic, maybe they're Buddhist, they have a different life view. It's silly for me to say, well, but this is wrong because the Bible says it. The Bible is just a random book to them. So in part of my faith reconstruction and figuring out what I believe and why I believe it, there was that piece that got a lot of pushback. That was me trying to understand, how do I show love to others who don't believe or maybe did believe and no longer believe? How do I meet them in love and make them feel loved and accepted, even though they don't hold my beliefs? And I think that that's I still haven't figured it out. I'm still working on it. But I think that's difficult. And a lot of people, when they leave the church, we have a society that is no longer bound by biblical principles in a lot of ways, specifically where we live. Maybe Mississippi and Arkansas are different. But in California, you said, you know, we have this, like, melting pot of so many different beliefs. So how do we meet those people and how do we love those people? And previous people that I know that are from previous churches or from, you know, just different phases in life are very much, well, this is what the Bible says and you are wrong. And for me, coming back to the church, I knew I was wrong. I don't need you to tell me, and I don't need you to judge me. I need you to love me in that. And so
And let me work out my salvation with fear and trembling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's my salvation. I don't need you to tell me how I should live my life.
Or where I should be on the growth scale, or checking off calendar dates of you should believe this by then, or
Yeah.
you know, you and I chatted earlier about this word and the idea of people deconstructing their faith. And in my understanding, tell me if I'm misunderstanding, but it seems to come, it seems that it has come to mean people who are leaving the church are tearing their faith apart and seeing all the things that were wrong with the church, which they're obviously churches are just full of people that make mistakes and
Yeah.
wrong things. But there's another part. I mean, the part of deconstructing the church, the faith. It makes me think of when Paul went to Berea and preached to the Bereans. They listened to what he said, but they checked it. You know. And then you and I were talking before we started recording about how the Jews, when they came to Christ, they had to deconstruct their Judaism to see how Jesus fit in.
Yeah.
So deconstruction has come to mean kind of a negative connotation, but it's really not if people are deconstructing for the purpose of reconstructing. And right now it seems to be in vogue and kind of popular that I'm deconstructing my faith and I'm tearing everything down and walking away, you know. But if you deconstruct all the non-essentials and are still left with Jesus, now you have the foundation to build on, which is what you did.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, let me come back into church. I've been away for a while, and I'm reconstructing my faith. Please don't tell me I should be farther along.
Yeah.
Let me get there on my own. And I love that verse that Paul says in Philippians, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And your salvation and your faith has to be yours.
Yeah.
And sometimes people in the church, I think, and pastors too, are uncomfortable that you're not up to speed yet. And that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry if I took the words
No.
out of your mouth.
No, it's when we were discussing it, it made me think about I think the first deconstruction was the Jews. But throughout history, you know, you have the Council of Trent and the Council of Nicaea, where there were all different types of beliefs that were bubbling up and people were searching for the truth. And they had to filter through what is the truth, what works, what is biblical. And they were as a group doing that together. And their intention was to find the truth of God, find the truth of the Bible and to stick to it. And it almost feels like we're seeing that a little bit again. And with that, you're going to have people who deconstruct and walk away. They just tear down the whole building and they walk away because it's not worth it. And then there are
Or they don't want to do the work, maybe, or they're just not sincere, or
yeah, I don't know.
or giving into emotions from hurts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think all of those could be true. I think that there's probably a good portion of all of those out there. And I think that the people who don't walk away really do want to find what the Bible says and how the Bible tells us to live as the world is changing and turning, because we are seeing that the world is changing. We are seeing that what post-World War II was in America very Christian, and you had all these revivals and all these movements, and now the pendulum's kind of swinging the other way. We're going away from that a little bit. We're speaking to people who don't tell us to our face, oh yeah, I believe in God, I know all that, I'm good. We're speaking to people who are saying, I knew God, and that's not for me, I have this over here, or I never knew God.
Yeah, the Barna Group, I've mentioned this at church, they study church trends and all that. San Francisco Bay Area is the most unchurched, de-churched area in the United States, and we're in that area. So we see a lot of that, certainly. Yeah, I think about the Apostle Paul. He had a lot of deconstructing to do. You know, he did. And it's interesting, too, because his own faith was pointing to the Messiah. And he had to deconstruct all the things, all the non-essentials, and make his way back to Messiah. One more thing while we're here, you still had a lot of hurt. So coming back to the church, tell me about whatever process you went through of forgiving people that hurt you. Is this the juicy part now?
This is the recent part. The way that I deal with hurt and trauma is I repress it. I just don't deal with it, and I pretend like it doesn't exist, because that's the easy way for me to move on. So when we were at the apologetics class and I stuck my foot in my mouth, and
You didn't stick your foot in your mouth. You opened up a new door for us.
I did.
Yeah.
I opened up something new for other people to explore and for me to deal with. And God has really used that to help me work through this season and to, again, he's merciful and he's graceful. And as we are ready, he brings these things up. And so he's really brought this up and he said, look, it hasn't bothered you, but you also haven't forgiven. And I had to work through that. And I had to work through, exposing it was part of this specific process. I don't think it's a part of all processes, but this time I had to expose it. I had to get it out there. I had to deal with it.
In other words, you had to tell your story and let people know that you'd been hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had to just get it out there. And then I had to forgive. And it took several weeks of me saying, Lord, I want to forgive. I want to move past this. I don't know how. I'm still really hurt. And it's still, even though it doesn't affect my daily life and I've moved past it, I'm ready to forgive. I don't know how. I don't know how to let this go because it's been a part of my life for so long.
There's a bit of a warning for those who do get hurt. If you don't get to forgiveness sooner than later, it just becomes this burden you carry around, right? And you get used to just walking with the burden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you are like me and you don't think about it and you've repressed it, it's still with you. It doesn't disappear. It's just not in your current thinking capacity. But it's still there and it still affects how you go into church every week. You're going in viewing people. I was going in viewing people as unsafe. And I had safe people, but I also, if I didn't know you, you weren't necessarily safe. And that's not welcoming. I'm also not a greeter, so it's not welcoming though for people who are coming into the church, because if you have been hurt, you can see the hurt in other people. You can see that in the way that they approach you or they don't approach you, and that's not good for the church. It's not healthy. So I had to deal with that, and I had to wrestle with it, and I had to ask God the questions: why? Why am I still carrying this? Why can't I forgive? Why can't I move on from this? And God's just been working on my heart. And as I've been able to move past and forgive this, now he's like, okay, here's something else that you need to work on. Yeah.
You opened the Pandora's box. Huh?
Yeah, I did.
But it needs to be opened.
It does.
Yeah.
When you develop a habit of unforgiveness, not in the little thing. I didn't do it in little things. I typically am a very forgiving person. I'm not easily offended. I don't carry grudges. But if it's a deep hurt, if it's something that really is either repeated or cuts to my core, if it's a really deep hurt, I repress it and then I don't forgive it. And God's starting to work on me and say, this isn't a good habit. It's not good for you to not let people know that they've hurt you. It's not good that you carry this anger with you and these hurt feelings. And it doesn't mean I have to go around telling all these people they hurt my feelings.
Yeah, and sometimes that's counterproductive because it's just, that can turn into an argument. No, we didn't, it was your fault kind of thing, which would just throw more gas on the fire.
It might cause a stumbling block in their life, which is absolutely what I wouldn't want. I wouldn't want somebody to stumble because of something they did and maybe didn't even realize it or didn't know how much it affected me. That wouldn't make me feel any better about it.
I wonder too if sometimes, we're all, and I love that verse once again, I'll repeat it, we're all working out our salvation, our own salvation, Paul says. And somebody can be making a mistake, and it's just because they're immature in an area. Even a pastor who's insecure, he'll give in to peer pressure of the church, and then he'll make life harder for one person and hurt the one person. And there was never any intention there.
Yeah.
It just happened. And if you went back to them, they wouldn't do the same thing again because now they're more mature. But So currently then I'm hearing you say you're in this season of learning to forgive and the importance of forgiveness and not repressing it. And
Yeah.
in Romans chapter 1, Paul talks about those people who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And I remember reading a commentary that said, well, this is what I put together. Suppressing is to hold it down, to hold something down. And I think about, as a kid in the swimming pool, trying to hold down the beach ball. It takes a lot of, I mean, you don't have good footing. All your energy is holding down the beach ball. And the moment you let it go, it pops up again. So
Yeah.
there's this constant wrestling with, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it, but you have to deal with it,
Yeah.
And so you're in that season of, if I'm understanding correctly, of like, okay, I see a little bit of a beach ball coming up here.
Yeah.
How do I deal with forgiving these people, you know? And so
Yeah.
it's a current struggle, challenge.
Yeah, I've moved past. I've forgiven those people.
Great.
But there are other things and other situations in life that God has used this specific situation to bring up a bigger issue, which is, hey, you haven't forgiven these people, XYZ, whatever it happens to be, and they really hurt you. They really did some things that were damaging. You need to move past it. And just like it took me several weeks to work through forgiving this situation, leaving the church, it's probably going to take me longer to forgive the other ones. But God starts with something small. It's hurtful, but he started working on this years ago when I started singing, when it was very, very small. And he met a desire of my heart, and he grew it slowly. And he redeemed that comment.
The comment that you'll never be a singer in a worship team, and you're singing with us.
Yeah.
You just led worship Sunday.
Yeah. And it
And you're getting a
fills
lot
my
of comments,
soul.
by the way, so good for
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It fills my soul in a way that
I shouldn't say
nothing else
comments, because that could be negative. You're getting a lot of thumbs up. That's what I meant. Okay.
does. I enjoy it. And it's something that when I first went into the church in Camarillo, there was one specific person who would play and sing the piano, and I would cry to myself, like, my mascara, my allergies, whatever it happened to be, because my heart longed to do what she was doing. And it's taken me years to grow that back, and God has grown that. And with that growing and with that honoring and him saying, look, I've redeemed this. Now you need to forgive. I'm continuing to redeem this. I'm continuing to walk you through this and give you the desire of your heart, because it fills you with joy, and it is holy to worship the Lord. So you got to put this away before I can grow you over here. And he's wonderful, and he's amazing in doing that. And when I started back here, it was for very selfish reasons. It's because I needed something for myself.
Well, not totally for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even before that, though, it was for your son.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's always
We
been
can
a
start with
giving.
selfish motives, but it can be for good.
Sure. Good. In forgiving, I mean, my own thing, very briefly, we know what to do as believers. I mean, the big struggle with forgiving people is the pain, and the emotions seem to take over and prevent us from taking steps of faith. And so for me, I've just learned that I really do need to pray for my enemies. And when people hurt me, they feel like enemies, and it starts there. And there was one person that, in particular, that they sinned against me, and I knew it. It was clear they sinned against me, and so I resented them, and I held on to the anger and the resentment. I kept them at arm's length because I could stay in control, And if I would see, and I was the pastor of the church, but if I saw them, I'd go the other way, and they're this and I'm that, and I was shocked how, I was reading in 1 John, if you can't love your brother who you can see, how can you say you love God that you don't see? Began to pray for them, and God took the anger away. And I was almost angry at God. You took the anger away, Lord. I had every right to be angry at him, and you took it away, and now I'm powerless again. And it's like, I was like fighting God to stay unforgiving. I want to
Yeah.
stay unforgiving. And it was just the most stupidest thing ever. It's foolish, you know. And the Lord took the anger away. And when I see this person now, it's just not there anymore, you know.
Yeah.
And they've never come to me and said I'm sorry, or they've never acknowledged anything, and they don't need to. It's my heart where it starts. If they extend their hand now, we're all good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have to go try to work up forgiveness. It's already there. So it is a process, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just heard recently, I'm sorry I'm taking over a little bit now,
Oh.
but how when Stephen was stoned in Acts chapter 6, I think, or 7, as right before the last rock hit him, he said, Father, don't hold this against them.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say, hang on a minute, guys, I need some time to learn how to forgive you. I mean, it was in his heart already.
Yeah.
How wonderful if we can live as Christians with forgiveness on our next breath, you know.
Yeah.
But we have to work out our salvation. We have to get there.
We do.
So
And it's a process.
it is a process.
And it's not a fast one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we have to be convinced of these things in our mind, and God has to. We need to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, you know. And so let's summarize here before we sign off. You went to a church that had a welcoming pastor, welcoming people, a group that understood you,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody tried to be your best friend right away.
Yeah.
They gave you room,
Mm-hmm.
welcoming, but they didn't try to fix you.
Yep.
But you had to go back into church with an attitude of like, I've lost my faith muscle.
Mm-hmm.
If I say I'm going to follow Jesus, I really need to follow him.
Yeah.
And so from what I'm hearing from you, it started probably with the easier things first,
Mm-hmm.
and now moving towards the harder things, but you're going to continue to apply yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because our faith is a lifelong process.
Mm-hmm.
We never, should say, we make it when we get to heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
When
Yeah.
all of our sin is washed away.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something inside of us that needs to be worked on because we're not perfect.
Yeah.
So part of the process was learning I'm not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I do it all right.
Mm-hmm.
It means that I have to continually work and I have to continually
Right.
do the hard things like you do in marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
marriage is great, but it's hard work.
It takes some work.
It does.
Yeah.
You have to keep investing.
Yeah.
Otherwise that marriage will not be there
Mm-hmm.
later.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have tatters. And
Yeah.
I don't want a tattered faith. I want a faith that keeps growing.
Mm-hmm. So let me have you close it with a word of encouragement to people that know they need to be back in church and following Jesus, but have all these reasons. You know, maybe you could even just kind of look into the camera and just talk to them and just encourage them about what needs to happen.
Sure.
Yeah. And this is from someone who's gone through it.
Yeah.
So,
From someone who understands your lived experiences and knows the hurt and the frustration and the anger and confusion that you're feeling. I'm sorry that is your experience, and I'm sorry that you've had to go through that. And no amount of apologies are going to make it any better. I encourage you to ask God to show up in your life, to ask God to, just between you and him, start healing this area of your heart. And it will be slow. It's not going to be a quick recovery, but he will be faithful and he will start to heal your heart and speak to those places inside of you that you remember, that you love, but have been lost for however many years. And if you are faithful to ask God for help, he will be faithful to help you. And there will be things in your life that just kind of pop up and you'll look back and say, oh, that was God paving the way for me. And I pray that you start that journey today and that you can get to a place where you can look back and say, God was there and he paved this way for me. And he used me in whatever way that he needs to use you to help heal your heart and to help heal others, because that's the way it works. Iron sharpens iron, whether we want it to or not. So I encourage you to start small in your heart and ask God for the help that you need to heal these places inside of you.
Thanks. Good word.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been Nicole Ornay, and we both attend Cornerstone Fellowship in Napa. And I've been your host, Bill Walden, Wine Country Pastor Podcast. So thanks for watching. I want to encourage you that if this blesses you, if it ministers to you, share it on your social media. We're not interested in getting followers or getting recognition. We are very interested in seeing people healed up spiritually in their souls and their spirits and their minds and hearts. And the old joke, of course, is that church is great except for the people, and people can be problematic, but God is good, and He wants to use us as His agents of healing other people and bringing hope to them. So if this is a blessing to you, please do share it with other people. So Nicole, thanks.
You're welcome.
It's been really good. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. God